We might not have an OnlyFans, but you can support our content by signing up on Patreon. It's linked down below, and by signing up, you can get a whole bunch of perks. And fortunately, there's no nudes. If you didn't know, OnlyFans is a British website where people around the world can pay creators to gain access to exclusive, paywalled content. If you're not familiar with the content on OnlyFans, let's just say that it's normally, but not always, pretty adult. That made it especially surprising when the company announced that they'd be banning pornographic content, i.e. most of the stuff on their platform. So why are they doing this? And although it might sound like a pretty trivial story, you should really care, because this is bigger than you think. So on Thursday evening, OnlyFans announced that it will be banning, quote, any content containing sexually explicit conduct from October. While it turns out that there are a couple of non-pornographic creators, like chefs and yoga teachers on the platform, it is mainly porn. So why on earth would they ban their biggest revenue source? Well, the answer is that banks and payment processing companies, basically Visa and MasterCard, don't like the content on the site, so threaten to stop processing any payments. This is probably because OnlyFans has been facing growing scrutiny recently over its ability to remove illegal and exploitative material, including underage material. In fact, earlier this month, 102 US congressmen and women demanded a Department of Justice investigation into the site for precisely this reason. And the Children's Commissioner in England said that OnlyFans had to do more about underage material. In response to the criticism, OnlyFans produced their first ever transparency report this July, where it said that it had found 15 accounts hosting underage material and had deactivated all of them. But this apparently wasn't enough, because the payment processing companies still threatened to pull out, and this didn't really give OnlyFans any choice. Either they changed their content guidelines to appease Visa and MasterCard, or they lost the ability to take payments, which would obviously lead to the collapse of the company. And this isn't the first time that something like this has happened. Last December, Visa and MasterCard briefly banned payments to websites owned by online pornography giant MindGeek, following reports that it was hosting revenge porn, uploaded without the consent of those involved. The financial businesses only backtracked when MindGeek deleted tens of millions of unverified videos from its sites such as Pornhub. And it's not just porn either. PayPal banned gun-related transactions in 2002, and various other payment processing companies have stopped processing payments for certain drugs that claim to improve cognitive performance, known as nootropics. Now, while this might sound like a trivial story, it is only porn after all. It points to a larger problem. Payment processing companies have the power to decide what we can pay for, and therefore which companies can exist. There's no oversight, no appeals process, and perhaps most importantly, no democratic accountability. Again, we should stress that it's not that we love porn or guns or misadvertised unregulated nootropics. It's that a handful of companies, Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal, have the power to decide what you can buy. And given that basically every business today relies on digital payment processing, these companies can also decide which businesses can exist. It apparently didn't even matter that most of the material on OnlyFans was completely legal. If the payment processing companies don't like it, then that's the end of it. Now, you might be thinking, what's the problem? They're private companies. It's up to them if they process porn payments. And while this argument might hold if the payment processing space was a free market, it's definitely not. It's an effective oligopoly, with a few massive companies that everyone relies on. And the government seems to actively enforce this. There are two alternatives for a company like OnlyFans then. Move to a different payment processing company, or move to crypto payments. The first option, moving to a new payment processing company, isn't as easy as it sounds. Firstly, they'll probably be more expensive and difficult to work with than Visa and MasterCard. That's how an oligopoly works. And secondly, the government might shut them down anyway, even if they're entirely legal. For example, Operation Choke Point, launched by Obama in 2013, put pressure on banks to stop trading with legal but apparently distasteful businesses, including gun companies and payday loan companies. Again, we're not defending guns or payday loans. The point is that OnlyFans can't really just move to another payment processing platform. Crypto is a similar story. Sure, OnlyFans could start accepting Bitcoin, but again, that comes with a whole load of government regulations, and most analysts only expect the regulation to get more intense in the future. Again, this makes it harder for companies to move to crypto. And the point we're trying to make here is that the government is actively encouraging the current oligopoly by working against payment processing companies that will be willing to accept payments for legal but distasteful activities, while also undermining cryptocurrencies, which would cut out the middleman payment processors entirely. Again, to stress the point, this means that unelected payment companies have practically total control over what we can consume. So, what are the solutions? Well, there are basically two options. One is crypto. Despite what we just said about government regulations, cryptos are still a semi-viable option for companies like OnlyFans. Sure, it would make things harder and probably mean less profit, but at least the company could still operate. The other solution is a public digital payment processing system, otherwise known as a PDPP, which is something we actually discuss in our video on DM25, which comes out on the TLDR EU channel today. Essentially, this would involve the state creating digital wallets for every citizen and facilitating transfers between them. This would mean no middlemen payment processors like Visa or MasterCard. But it might not be the ideal solution for the libertarian extremists among you. Because, well, while it might mean that Visa and MasterCard won't be able to decide what you can spend your money on, the state will. More and more countries are toying with something like this, with their own digital currencies. And it's something we actually made a video on a while ago. There's a link in the description if you're interested. The money, power, and politics of this are obviously important, but there's a real human element to this story too. Thousands of creators are likely to be affected by this decision. People who have put themselves out there, potentially damaging future job prospects, who now won't be able to earn any revenue through the site. Now, you might have little sympathy for what could be considered a reckless decision, but this is another example of the stigmatization of sex workers, and for many, that's a worrying sign in itself. Which side of the line do you fall on? Should more be done to protect these creators? Should huge companies wield this sort of power? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a video like this one. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this possible, and if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. It's linked down below.